Hello, beautiful people, programmers, game developers, technologists, and the like. Today we have a special episode with Dane, aka Splosions, who talks about his project Noia. The title of the episode is The One Man MMO Show. Dane talks us through his mindset and strategies he deploys to take on such a big project. I know that many people have dreams of building their own MMO project, and here's someone who is doing it. Noia is based on a game called Fantasy Online, which was a one-man MMO project, but unfortunately died because the original developer couldn't support it any longer. So, I hope you enjoy this episode with Dane on developing with Action Jake. Splosions, welcome to the show, man. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm excited to learn more about Noia Dev. But before we do that, I want to dive into your background a little bit. So, can you tell me a little bit about your career in tech, where you got your start, and what you decided to specialize in?
So my career in tech kind of started in high school. I was just the guy that people would kind of go to if they had questions about, like, is this a good motherboard, or can you help me put this computer together, stuff like that. Outside of that, I got started essentially in call center tech support work because of the exact same reason. I believe one of the questions in the interview is, what do you think qualifies you to work here? I'm like, well, I worked on computers in high school. They're like, cool, you're in. um yeah.
And then the last question was what did you end up specializing in, and I guess what are you doing today?
I specialize in Windows server administration and email primarily. When I was kind of climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak, nobody wanted to touch email and Microsoft Exchange servers with a 10-foot pole. And so it was kind of like that idea. Well, if nobody else is volunteering, then that means nobody else knows how to do it. And that means it was, my that indicated to me that I need to like raise my hand, because the whole thing about the tech industry is if you're not constantly learning, you will just get crushed by the technology wave and it'll just pass you by.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so did you have a formal education in tech, like in computer science or any related field?
I would not call it that,
Okay.
but technically yes. I have 1 year of IT trade school, and that trade school went out of business due to a class action lawsuit the next year after I graduated.
Perfect
So I
timing.
would say no, but technically yes.
Okay, no, honestly, I like that answer because I don't either have formal education. I went and got my coding boot camp
hmm
certification. So I think that story is really helpful for people that are looking to break into tech because a lot of the times it's like, oh, well, I don't have a 4 year computer science degree, or I already graduated with XYZ degree. Like I can't do it now. But you're a testament to getting in tech
Yep.
without formal education, and so am I. So I like that answer. I would have liked the other answer too, but cool. All right, so that leads me to the next question because I know you're doing game development as a hobby. So did you ever desire to have a career in the gaming industry, and
I
why
mean,
or why not?
I think everybody has that dream of,
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna go work at Blizzard, or I'm gonna go get a job as a QA tester and play video games for the rest of my life. So there was that, typical desire, but to actually uh, have a job programming, absolutely not. I hate metrics with a burning passion.
Okay.
I don't like being micromanaged. I don't like to. I've seen AAA publishers, or no, AAA games just get absolutely crushed by publisher demands, and also like the constant fear of crunch time and stuff like that. I never wanted to live in that industry for those reasons.
Totally. And I can totally relate. I figured your answer was going to be something of the sort. So, um, I'm guessing that means you saw an outlet to pursue game development as a hobby while you're financing it with your main job, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is absolutely it started as a hobby. Yes.
Totally. Okay, and so it's like there's no concern because if Noia Dev fails, which it won't, you got nothing to lose, right? You don't have a job to
I
lose over
right.
it, and
Nope.
you don't have any financial hopes and dependencies on it. It's
No.
just it's cherry on top at this point.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
How far can we take it?
And then I guess I'm gonna ask this question: could you see yourself getting into the gaming industry? Um, Maybe later in your career, given the right opportunity or the right position presents itself.
I would like to. Um, I would like to for the right reasons. Um, be it to offset those stereotypes of the game industry world. However, I do know that there are a lot of smart people out there that crunch the numbers a lot harder than I do, that have kind of boiled down the efficiency of their staff to as profitable as possible. So I think it would still be difficult
Mm-hmm.
to do so and be competitive. So the only thing that I would have going for me would be good content, good games.
Totally.
Um, yeah,
Well, okay. I think that's a great transition to my next question because I want to get into Noia Dev a little bit. Noia, I'm pronouncing that correctly, right?
yep,
All right,
yeah.
cool. So, what inspired you to start building Noia and an MMO at that?
So we're gonna go through his history here. A buddy of mine and I, we had a Minecraft server called Elysium Craft, and back then, I don't know if you're familiar with Minecraft, the modding scene and whatnot, but
A little bit.
there was a system called Bucket back in the day where it didn't actually introduce new items into the game, but it kind of you could tweak things that were already in the game. And the people did some amazing stuff with just the items that were in the game already and with chat commands. And there were these plugins that could turn Minecraft into an MMORPG with classes and all sorts of cool stuff. And you could set up dungeons that would reset themselves after people left. And we spent at least a year and a half just making this Minecraft server into an MMO. And then there was a DMCA with the people on the Bucket team just like
Mm.
tore themselves apart, and that was all gone.
Oof.
So I started making an actual Minecraft mod with the Forge dev kit, um, called Modular Bosses, and it received a lot of good praise because it was a mod that server admins could use to add fantastical bosses to their server and customize like the HP and the attack values and the loot that you got, but all the bosses I made. And that we had like giant robots and stuff, and it wasn't just like your typical like just a giant hitbox that could do damage. Like they had mechanics and phases and stuff, and it was really cool. And then Microsoft bought Minecraft, and I took a long hard look at it, and the Forge dev wasn't doing me any favors. Every single time there was a new Forge version, I basically had to scrap the entire mod and start over from scratch. And then with the addition of Microsoft buying Minecraft, Minecraft Bedrock started taking over, which is written in C. I think.
I think C
Um,
sharp.
or yeah, it was written in just a different language,
Mhm.
and someone's like, I can't maintain all these different variations of the mod,
Right.
and I'm not getting paid for this anyway. This is just a hobby, and it became too much, and I threw the GitHub into the public eye and like, anybody can have this. It's yours now. Do with it what you will. Um, so there was that. While I was working in call centers, there were a couple of different games that you could play in your browser. There was a game called Dragon Fable. It was all Flash based, from Artix Games, and there was Fantasy Online. And uh, Dragon Fable isn't a true MMO, and Fantasy Online was, but then out of nowhere, Fantasy Online just gets shut down. And um, still to this day, nobody knows why. And so for many years, I was just always asking myself, like, why has no one made another Fantasy Online yet? It was made by one guy in college, no money. He made the engine himself too.
Mm.
So it's like the proof of concept was there already. There was already a fan base like pre-built for it. All someone would have to do is just stand up an MMO, as easy as that sounds, and say, "Look at me," and everybody would like just the power vacuum would suck everybody over. And there was a couple of people from the Fantasy Online, uh, either fans of or a previous mod of Fantasy Online, that all tried and just kind of burned out on it. And truth be told, Noia started, the original name was Bit MMO, and it started about 4 years ago, um, with the first iteration of the uMMO
Mhm.
foundation. And I was constantly in talks with one of those other developers. Guy's name is uMMORPG, and we would bounce ideas off of each other. And then I fell into Final Fantasy 14 for a year and a half. So that's why that stopped. But he also just disappeared with other life issues. And once I emerged from that black hole, I was like, there was still no game. And I was like, okay, I need, if I'm going to do this, I need to set some more rigid boundaries so I could be held accountable and then keep going. Um, so that is why I decided to make an MMO.
Okay. Now that's a great backstory. So Fantasy Online, can you give me a timeline for Fantasy Online?
No.
Okay. You
I
don't you don't
don't.
you don't know when it like shut down or what era that
Uh,
was?
no, but there's on the Fantasy Online Reddit, I think there's a timeline
Okay.
we could dig up.
Yeah, we could dig that up. But it wasn't a flash game, was it? It was a
It,
custom engine.
I mean, I think it ran in Flash
Okay.
because it was on like Congregate and Facebook, and
It was
I'm pretty sure it ran in.
accessible through the browser.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I would be playing it while taking calls and doing tickets.
Got it. Okay. Man, I played a lot of those, quirky MMOs back in the day, and surprisingly, Fantasy Online, I heard it first from you. So, and I like my early days were scripting action script flash games way back in the
Hmm.
day,
Hmm.
and I was inspired by all the MMOs they used wonky little like online features to get the online flash games working, like with
Yeah,
networking. And then I remember, do you remember like games like Habbo Hotel or
it rings a bell.
okay, it's just another like one of those weird MMOs that like to this day is lodged in my brain. But obviously like Maple Story,
Yep.
RuneScape, those games are huge inspirations and still around. They're still super successful. Um, but okay, I love that story because it makes sense. It's like it sounds like you just need to bring this thing to life because no one else is taking up the call, right?
Basically, yeah. There's still that power vacuum there that's just not been fulfilled.
That's so awesome. So you answered this a little bit, but I am curious. Outside of your modding
Hmm.
experience, do you have any previous game dev experience?
Uh, no.
No.
Outside of Minecraft modding, I basically got introduced to coding on the job. They had this system where you could start typing a sentence and then you could predefine automatic responses to it. So you'd start typing the customer needs and it would pull up a list of automatic stuff and you click on it and it would fill out the whole sentence for you. I figured out that you could also make that do like mouse clicks and stuff too. So I would start typing a sentence, hit enter, and it would fill out the entire ticket for me. To which, for whatever reason, my team hated me for because I started dropping the ticket handling time down way too much and started making them look bad.
Yep. All it
But
takes is one programmer for that to happen.
right, and then um, I having done that, I started getting into writing bots for MMOs in auto hotkey.
Okay.
Once I learned how to make auto hotkey read the memory directly out of the game, I had full-fledged bots for Final Fantasy 14, and I got banned from Fantasy Online for botting.
You're one of those guys, okay.
I'm one of those guys. I never sold the bots or anything. It was just my selfish gains. But yeah, Final Fantasy 14, Aeon, EverQuest 2, you name it. I probably wrote
RuneScape.
a bot. No, I never wrote a. I never played RuneScape,
Okay, there you
and I never did MapleStory because I was too terrified. They live on your computer and would catch you.
go.
But
Oh man, I remember bots being a huge issue on RuneScape. Like a majority of the player base was bots, so I think
although
Jagex has like handled it a little bit now. I don't know.
so that's kind of one of the reasons, like building the MMO wasn't always like the sole reason. There's a number of different reasons why I want to build Noia, but one of them was like kind of my like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Is having my background in automation and stuff like that. I wanted to devise a system that could actually look at the player's data and would be able to pinpoint anomalies in play styles and kind of like give them a weight to like, this could be a bot, this might not be a bot, based on my experiences on coding bots. And then I could take that system and other MMO publishers would be like, "You're so bot free. Teach us how." and then I could be an anti-bot consultant to other MMOs. That's my like pipe dream.
Not just MMOs, but social media platforms too, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that technology behind reCAPTCHA is all about anti-bot, and I'm pretty sure it just tracks the movement of your mouse, and they
Hmm.
they can determine if it has human-like movement. Because a bot is just going to
Oh,
go
sure.
the quickest path, I guess, most likely, unless you're coding a smarter bot that pretends to be a human. Um, so yeah, man, that sounds like a great idea for like anti-bot tactics, especially as a bot creator yourself. I think you know better than anyone. Um, that's
My
awesome.
dark past is coming out.
But that actually brings up a good follow up question. So you did Minecraft mods, you did bot development, but
Hmm.
prior to Noia, you didn't do any little game like
I
custom game
tried to
project.
make I tried to make one game that and this is where I learned that scoping your project is very important. I wanted to make a like Devil May Cry slash like Bayonetta hack and slash action game, and it was actually based on my character in MapleStory. Um, and I had like this whole storyline planned out, and it was gonna like dive really deep into like how people get bullied in high school, and like the kind of toll that that takes on you, and that mental state that you go into. And it would follow this girl throughout her childhood into her career in law enforcement. And it was going to have like four different playable characters in this huge overarching storyline, and it was going to have all these cool, it was just going to be boss battles. I was going to take my ideas from Minecraft mods and just bosses, similar to how there's a Wii game called No More Heroes, where there was a little bit of like minion fighting, but it was primarily focused on the boss battles. And I went out and I bought a ton of 3D assets, and I was trying to just kludge together a first level, and I was like, I am in way over my head and I have no idea what I'm doing.
And how long ago was that? Do you recall?
That was probably like 5 years ago.
Okay. So you've at least had the experience of overscoping, and then your second project, you decide, hey, I'm just going to build an MMO.
I'm going to make an MMO.
So lessons learned, but not really.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, with the scoping, I realized like I was never opposed to purchasing assets if they were going to save me time.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Noia, I knew like off the bat there had to be a foundational thing that I could just purchase outright that would do most of the work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was two things. There was Atavism and uMMO. And I had purchased Atavism, I think, had a subscription model which didn't sit right with me. But before I had known about uMMO, I purchased Atavism for a while, and I was starting to work on it. I think it was also based in Unity. And then the main developer got in a really bad car accident.
Damn.
And like a week after I purchased it, he's like, guys, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue Atavism. I think they're okay now.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just like, well, we're going with this one now.
Mm-hmm. And you said you were in touch with the developer of uMMORPG, right? And
they have a Discord, yeah, and you can reach out to him and he'll come back and talk. So
and I guess just maybe you could quickly tell us, how has that experience been? Because and we're going to get to this question in the future, but I know many people, want to build MMOs. That's often
sure.
It's like, I'm going to build this MMO. How has your experience been with uMMORPG? It's great to know that there's some framework out there for Unity or otherwise that you can build MMOs with.
So my experience has been really good. There was very little things that like had me scratching my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is this thing getting refreshed every single tick? And then it made sense later. But having come from Minecraft and Forge mods, where every single thing that you want to send between the client and the server that is not part of Minecraft, you have to craft custom packets and messages and then send them back and forth and create handlers, all that. uMMO is built on Mirror, which handles 90% of that for you.
Okay.
And same with when I was learning Unity, like I had to make something in Minecraft where if I throw this thing up, I have to program its velocity to come back down as well. And in Unity, it's just check a box that says use gravity.
Yep.
And so that was kind of mind blowing to me because I like, I feel like I started in the wrong area.
Yeah, but you cut your teeth with the hard stuff, and now the easy stuff is that much easier.
Exactly. But that's I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in MMO or just networking game development in general, is the server to client communication and how, I don't know how to describe it, how people think of it. But that's where like wrapping their head around this needs to go on, like this piece of this method needs to be on the server, this one needs to be on the client, and those two need to talk to each other. And I mean, you hear so many stories about like exploits that happen in video games. There was a guy I don't know if it was RuneScape, but it was a game similar where he would go to his house and click sell, but then in the packet, he would grab that packet ahead of time and put the identifier of his neighbor's house in it and send it off to the server. And then his neighbor's house disappears and all the loot's sitting on the ground. And like that's the stuff that you're like, that's not how that's supposed to work. You're supposed to trust but verify on the
Yeah.
server.
Totally. So, I'm very very familiar with this language because the project I'm building is a custom network game engine that has a separate.
Hmm.
It's a client server architecture as well. So I have to be very mindful of what goes on the client, what goes on the server.
Yep.
When do they need to talk? When do they need to talk both ways? When do they need to talk just one way from client to server or vice versa? Right.
Yep.
But I am curious because I don't know too much about uMMORPG. Does it like how handholdy is it when it comes to like client versus server development?
Um, it's pretty easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But with Minecraft, I learned by going to other Minecraft devs and reading their GitHubs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so the uMMO dev has done a phenomenal job at putting notes all throughout the
Cool.
code. Like almost line by line, he explains what everything is doing.
Oh,
So
that's helpful.
it was pretty easy to pick up. And then Mirror, the actual netcode side of it, is also very well documented. So there was almost nothing that I've had to go to them and say like, explain to me how this works. I have gone to them occasionally, be like, hypothetically, if I break something with this, can I do that? And they're like, no, don't do that.
Got it. Okay. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Is it open source or is it you have to buy it?
Mirror is, I don't think it's open source, but it is free.
Okay.
And then uMMO, I believe, is $80 on
Okay.
the Unity
One
store.
time purchase.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. We can definitely link those in the description. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next question. I wanted to ask you what your favorite games were and why they're your favorite games. Maybe you can give me your top two or three.
So I am incredibly easy to please.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you say, hey, try this game, you'll really like it, chances are you're absolutely right. And I will lose myself in that black hole, right? So my favorite game of all time, which I keep with me on my cell phone on a PlayStation emulator, is Legend of Dragoon. Um, lately, I've been playing a lot of Warframe and Ark Survival Evolved.
Cool. Yeah, I know Legend of Dragoon. That's the rail shooter, right?
Nope,
Oh,
it's a JRPG.
oh, it's a JRPG. Okay, I'm thinking of Dragoon Saga. I think.
Yes, or
Okay.
something along those lines. Yes,
Okay. Then
there's a you're flying a dragon and
yeah.
you're shooting at stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Legend of Dragoon. It's a JRPG, like a traditional turn-based.
Yeah,
Okay.
it released alongside Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay. I played Final Fantasy VII as a kid. Man, that really imprints you as a child.
Yep.
So are you still into like turn-based RPGs, or is that more of like a nostalgia trip thing for you? And you've kind of evolved to enjoying more modern action RPG combat stuff.
Um, it it has its places because I do miss turnstile RPGs like that because they're easy to play. They're easy to like pick it up, take your turn, and then put it back down and continue working, stuff like that.
Mm.
So I do miss those. But lately it's been more along the lines of games that you can collaborate with other players. So like like Ark. Um, I don't play PvP. It's strictly PvE. So being able to like take down bosses, or like Final Fantasy 14 or Warframe, they're all squad based. I like playing with other people and having that experience with other people. There's been like even Maple Story. For the longest time, I played for 3 years I would have quit after the first year had I not been in a guild of people that I was talking to on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's such an important concept, and you're building an MMO, I'm building an online game. I think the online interaction with players to me is such a crucial part of gaming for me. But I know people love their single player games. It's just
Hmm.
it's so much harder for me to motivate myself to play like a 65-hour RPG single player versus like, oh, I can jump into this guild or this dungeon and play with some friends. I think that's a game changer.
Yep.
Okay. So I understand you're married with kids, and you got so much going on in your personal life, having kids, wife, and a full time job. How are you able to make time for Noia Dev?
I have uh 10 things. 9 of them are my amazing wife. um so I'm very, very fortunate to be able to work from home. So I don't have to, commute anywhere. So it's just my 8 hours. Um, but my wife is very, very understanding. She takes interest in the development of Noia as well, and she understands like I can't build the game if kids are screaming here. So to answer the question, it's all about time management. I wake up at 7 to 3, work 3 to 7, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. is usually either family or we'll go out shopping for stuff or cooking dinner. At around 7 to 8, the kids go down and go to sleep. And so from 7 to 11 is when I'm working on Noia.
Got it. Okay, so sounds like calendar time blocking is a crucial strategy you've picked up.
That I mean, no, I'm terrible at that.
Okay,
That's just how it's worked
got
out.
it.
If you were to talk to my boss, you'd know. Dane's the worst at calendar blocking.
Okay, well, you found something that works. It's that it is that
Yeah,
post kids going to sleep, and then it's like, okay, I have some freedom and alone time to work.
right.
And then I know as well, you've got your Discord server. You have the No Zero Days channel where you
Hmm.
post what you've done for the day. So if anything, you have stuff like that to keep you accountable.
Hmm.
Um, so do you have days where you're like, oh my gosh, I have planned work, but just life got in the way, and then it's like, what do you do to like kind of make a no zero day still happen? Or do you have like a bare
So
minimum, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I don't have a bare minimum, but I do have to do something.
Okay.
And you have to understand that as a single developer, your job is not just clickety clack writing code,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's the marketing side, there's research, there's, concepting, there's anything to do with making the game counts. There have been days where like I'm about to head to bed and I'm like, I have done nothing on my game all day today. I'm like, wait a minute, no I didn't. I spent 3 hours looking for a sprite artist today, or I kind of drew up a concept of this new system that I wanted. Like all of that counts. The
Totally.
no zero days is more like, yes, you should be, putting code into your game or something along those lines, but it's more along the lines of don't let the game leave your mind entirely.
No, I like that a lot. It's not necessarily like get commits made. It's progress, and sometimes that progress is just thinking through a system.
Right.
Drawing in your
It
journal.
it yeah, it has to get done and
Hmm.
you're the only person who's gonna do it, so that counts.
Totally. Well, that definitely transitions well in my next question, which is about your YouTube channel. What made you start one, and how the heck do you balance content creation with game development, not to mention your personal life?
Right. So, um, I heard not too long ago, someone put a name to this, and they call it working out loud.
Mm.
And so, originally, I thought you have to advertise your game somehow. You could have the best game in the universe and it could be God's gift to the gaming community, no one will know about it and no one will play it if you don't advertise it and create interest somehow. And so that's what the YouTube channel aimed to do. Um, you see a lot of other devlogs out there that are uh, they're taking you through the journey of creating their game, and that journey in and of itself is very interesting to see what they struggled with. And so I liked that, and I wanted a big part of Noia and is going to be able to customize your character with different like wacky outfits and stuff. And I want the players to be able to design that stuff. So it would be unfair to me to say no, you're only allowed to do this one part versus just saying like there have been ideas that have come from the Discord channel already that have made it into the game because I didn't think of them. And so including your audience in the creation process will only benefit you. You
Mm,
don't have to do everything that they're telling you to do. Like you're still the filter about, what is good for your game and what isn't.
right.
But like I can't understand there's like these AAA developers and stuff like that that go 5+ years of developing a game and only get player feedback in the last 2% of development. It it blows my mind because you'll get these huge games that cost millions of dollars, and at the very end, the players are like, "This is the dumbest thing ever. Why would you ever think to do this?" And the game just flops.
Totally. And I think understanding your own priorities, because maybe you're just making a game for yourself and you don't care
Hmm.
if people play or not. You're making an MMO. So I doubt you're making that for yourself. You have to be
No.
mindful of, right. Yeah. You have to be mindful of your player base. And I think that's just good advice because I've seen it too of just like, you know, deve- aspiring game developers. They're talented, they're good, they make a game, they post it like on Twitter, or it gets published, and then it doesn't do very well. And they're like, why didn't it do well? Well, I
Right.
mean, you can't just like throw something out in the wind and expect it to catch on. Like, it's a process, right? And
Hmm.
you've definitely enlightened me to that, and you've inspired me to start my own devlog series. So because I totally see the benefit. I'm building an online network game, and I think it would be silly to say I don't want a player base, and I don't want to, I obviously want to have that conversation going with my player base of like, is this even fun? Is this something you could see yourself playing?
Hmm.
Um, so, because you can get stuck, in the echo chamber of like, oh, this is a good idea, but then might be a good idea to you, but no one else gives shit.
Right.
um,
I think a lot of people also get stuck behind the idea of I want it to be a surprise,
mm,
and you're not going to lose that. Sure, like I was always like terrified to include certain portions of the lore and the storyline in my devlogs because I'm like, "Oh, I want the players to be able to experience that firsthand and get that wow."
mm,
And I'm like, "Okay, I might be spoiling this for some people, but like the people people are going to understand that I'm doing this and I want their feedback on that immediately. Like, no, that story's dumb, do something different. Okay, rather than hit them with it at the last second and then they tell me it's dumb. But I think it's okay to spoil the surprise of your game in a devlog.
totally.
Personally.
And it's like not the whole player base isn't reading your devlog anyway.
Exactly. there's going
Ideally,
to be there's going to be hopefully huge amounts of people that don't see your devlog that will still play your game.
absolutely, absolutely. It's really just those super fans that are like, oh, I want to know everything you're doing.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate you telling us that, and I'm definitely gonna link your YouTube channel in the description. Okay, so moving on, we alluded to this a little bit earlier. This is a big question. So there are so many game developers aspiring to build some grand idea for an MMO, right? The
Mhm.
question is, how might you guide someone to start on this journey? What tips would you give them to cultivate the proper mindset required to take on such an endeavor?
Um, this is funny because you're making your own engine.
Yeah.
My advice is don't do that.
Oh, I'll give the same advice. Don't worry, I'll give the same advice. I've been working on the engine for 4 years, over 4 years.
So lots of other big channels have said this. When like people say like, oh, you're not really a solo dev because you're using Unity because you didn't make Unity or you bought uMMO or something like you didn't make all this yourself.
Right.
And I'm not here to argue semantics of what a solo developer is. If you're the only one coding for your game, you're a solo developer.
100%.
Um, but don't be afraid to say, I don't know the best way to implement this, or
Mm.
I don't know how that works. I'm going to go take someone else's and just drop it into my game. For the longest time, like the number one uh, thing on my to-do list was just learn more about Mirror
Mm.
because like I anytime when I was making Minecraft mods, I was not making custom packets. I was dragging someone else's GitHub into mine, renaming a couple of variables and praying that it would work. I had no clue how that stuff worked. I do now because I finally looked into it, but there's no way that I could create Mirror on my own. There was no way that I was going to make uMMORPG on my own. Like those two things alone took a team of like I think 8+ people several years
Mm.
to make.
Right.
Like Noia could not happen without that. So and like you'll there's I remember there was a video that I was watching about some guys who were making their own. I don't think it was a full-on MMO, but it was a networkable game that had a chat feature, and they're like, "We don't know how to do chat. Let's go to the Unity store. Oh, hey, somebody made a chat function that plugs into our. Uh, I think they were using Fishnet instead of Mirror. It was called Fishnet, and like it plugs into that. Drag and drop. We have a chat system now. Saved themselves months of work. So like it's not taking it's being efficient
Mm.
with your time, right? And the resources available to you.
Totally. Totally. I mean, you said so many things I resonate with. I mean, the solo dev thing is funny because you could also make the same argument for someone that's writing like a C++ program. Well, they didn't build C++, so they're not a solo dev. It's kind of a
Right.
silly argument. We're always in the technology space. We're always standing on the shoulders of giants. It's just how it is.
Right. And that's not to say don't
Yeah.
do that. Like I'm sure there's tons of fun in making your own engine. It's its own tangled ball of Christmas lights that you get to unravel yourself. If that's your thing, do it. Absolutely. But I would not recommend that to someone starting out.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Don't do what I did if you're starting out. But I will say in my defense, I had some understanding of the scope. I'm not building an MMO,
You're a software dev.
and I'm a software dev. And honestly, this project has been that vehicle for elevating my software dev
Yeah.
skills. So even at the beginning, I was like, I'm just building this for fun. But now it's kind of like come to life. I'm like, well, might as well keep going because it's fun to work on. And I'm gonna try and build a game with it. So yeah, I appreciate that. So I do have a kind of like a tack on question of that.
hmm
So that's specific to like an MMO, but do you have any other tips you would recommend for someone who's looking to get into game development?
So I touched on scoping your project
Yeah.
before. So to build upon that, I work in IT and I've done a lot of project management. And so many times we would go to a client and they would have a quote from a competitor and we would give our quote and it was usually more expensive. And they were like, well, we're going to go with this other person. and then a month, 2 months down the line, they come back and there's like, this is a nightmare. They want more money. They ran out of time. So every single time I scope out a project in IT, I always under promise, over deliver, take the amount of time you think it's going to take and double it or triple it.
Mm-hmm.
Like without a doubt, something will go wrong. You will grossly underestimate your ability to do something, and if you go into it with a mindset of under promising and over delivering, if you go into it just like, I'm going to make this clunky little MMO with 4-bit graphics and maybe chat, and if you click on a monster it kills it, and then you come out the gate swinging with, 16-bit graphics and a storyline and quests and stuff like that, like everybody's gonna be like, that's the guy, right? So scope and underscope, please. Um, and you will hear about that a lot if you look into other game dev channels. They like, one of their number one things is what they call scope creep, where you
Mm-hmm.
just keep tacking on more and more and more and more ideas. Um, so what you to the next portion of this is to have your minimum viable product in mind and put a hard wall there until you reach that minimum viable product. If you go to my Trello board, which is like my fancy to-do list, there is a ton of stuff in the to-do line, but a few devlogs ago, I set a hard limit. I put a number of things in the doing column and I said, this is not changing. Like, I'm not moving anything over until alpha launches. Like, this
Mm.
is my limit and I'm not allowed to work on anything new until I get this done.
That's smart.
Um, because until you have a minimum viable product and you can confirm it's playable, it works well enough, and it's fun to play. Like, I could make this whole MMO and never have a working game until the very end with a billion different systems, and it could just be a terrible mess, and it wouldn't be fun to play, and I would just have wasted years of time. So having your minimum viable product, what is the least amount of systems that you can get away with and still retain your core game? Make that and see if it's fun to play. Um, to maintain your personal sanity, I don't have a way of saying this. It's just, don't overdo it. And it's okay to say, this is good enough.
Mm.
Like, do not worry about optimizing every little thing immediately, because you will never get anything done. You need to be able to say, this works, good enough, and I'm moving on to the next thing. Um, and that will also help you uh, be able to kind of set a limit in how much that you do per day. Like, I have the No Zero Days channel, and if I see myself having 3 or 4 different posts in that in a single day, I'm starting to think like, I've worked too much on this and I cannot be doing that. Like, I can't
Mm.
set that precedent for myself to get that much done every single day, because I will kill myself doing it.
Mm.
So there was a guy who made an Xbox game called Dust, and he made it his in all by himself. And if you watch the documentary on that, at the very end, the guy was so burnt out, he hit a roadblock with all of his voice actor files, and he couldn't get it to load in the game, and he was like hours away from launch.
Mm.
And the dude, like in a depressed state, went to bed, just passed out. And in his own words, I rewrote the systems in my sleep, got back up 8 hours later, and fixed the problem, and the game launched to great critical success. Like, there are times that you will not be able to solve the problem by staring at it. You need to put it down, go take a shower, go for a walk, go to bed, and look at it the next day with fresh eyes, and you'll be so surprised how much easier it is to solve that problem when you're running at 100%.
Oh, totally. I totally resonate. And I do have a follow up. So, would you also recommend, like, for example, speaking of chat, I've been building my own custom chat for the last like 2 weeks, including my own custom input bar. I had to do it all, man. But we're not going to get into that now. But I am like at the tail end of the feature where I'm like, adding kind of the fluffy stuff, the nice to
Hmm.
haves. But I'm like, I've been working on this branch for so long. I'm ready to close out the branch where it's at. And I know future me can add on additional features, but it's like I need to shift focus to totally different things. So
Hmm.
do you have a practice where you even shift focus to other functionality, even if you would say a certain functionality isn't code complete, or even like, what do you,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
so
what's a strategy for that?
so I either put it into the Trello board to be looked at later. I do have a private Trello board with all of my to-dos. I'll put a note in the code or a comment in the code that just to do, like just make this better. um, or like, but again, it falls back to minimum viable product.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have different chat colors. I could do, all these fancy things with chat, but I don't need that now. I just need chat to work. And so then I'll put like I'll find out where that will end up needing to be, these cool little ideas, and I'll put a to do comment, and then in my Trello board I will go and I'll put, make colored chat. It would go in this function on this line in this CS file.
Got it.
And then
And
I can go back and look at that later.
got it. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My only to dos are, in my code. A lot of, like, pretty much for the main files, it's like to do, to do, to do, and then parentheses done if
So
I've completed it.
my big problem with that is there's been several days where I'll be banging my head on against something and I'll just come back like I don't want to work on that today. And I'll be staring at the project like what what should I work on? And just looking at your game and looking at your code will not tell you. So I have my Trello board with all of my to-dos and I'd be like that one looks good. Let's go do that one.
Got it.
And um that kind of transitions into a different topic is there's going to be days that you don't want to work on the nuts and bolts. So I liken it to building a helicopter,
Okay.
right? Like you and I want to make new systems. Like I would love to make a custom like player housing system or a like revamp the guild system or put in an auction house. So like I want to make that new cool fancy stuff, but I have to go and I have to assign strength stats to every single monster in the game. Otherwise, nobody's going to be fighting any monsters. And so, yes, I would love to design new combat systems for my helicopter, but somebody's got to go in and just tighten bolts for 8 hours a day. And nobody wants to tighten bolts, but
Mm.
you got to get it done. So there's been days where I'll say like I'm not gonna go work on this new fun thing until I can tighten some bolts for a little while first. And I'm running into that now,
Mm.
coming up to an alpha launch where there's a lot of bolts that need to get tightened. And I'm like, fine.
Well, the great thing is, you're building this because it comes from a place of love, and if you didn't
Right.
have that passion, you wouldn't want to go. You wouldn't go through the tediousness of tightening bolts and doing the stuff you just don't like, right?
I think a lot of devs do burn themselves out
Mm.
there where they'll do all of the stuff that they want to do and then they realize there's a whole bunch of stuff that still needs to get done that they don't want to do, like building a UI. Nobody likes UI. So and then they see the mountain of work that is still left to do, and none of it is fun, and they just go, nah, no more. We're done here.
I think that's accurate. And in fact, we talked about this off the
Hmm.
podcast about how you have to balance the work you want to do with the work you have to do, right? And so it's
Yep.
almost like you give yourself the carrot approach for motivation of like, okay, like you just said, once these bolts are tightened, then next week I can start on the auction house or whatever, right?
Right.
I think having that dialogue and that inner system is so important to, be successful in the long run to get a project like this off the ground.
Hmm.
Um, well, and you already mentioned it, so that was one of my last questions. Moving back to Noia Dev, what is next, and when can we expect us beta testers to get our hands on it?
So I already have the first week of April off from work. I've requested that time off. I told my boss, look, my game's going live. uh I think it's hilarious because this whole thing started off like as a joke. I'm going to make an MMO. So I think it's very poetic that it's going to launch on April 1st.
That's awesome.
And so I have no way, or I don't want to be bothered to create accounts for people. I have a system in place for verification, email verification. So you'll put in your email, it'll send you a 6-digit code. You have to put that in to create your account or change your password. So we got that set up. Um, so I guess it's just going to be live to everybody on April 1st, and just go into it with the biggest open mind that this is going to be the worst wreck you've ever seen.
I can't wait for it, man. I can't wait to see that beautiful disaster.
Yes.
Oh man, that is exciting stuff. Okay, and I'll plan on getting this podcast out before then, so people can hear about it. So that leaves me to my last question: where can people find you?
I am on YouTube at Noia Dev, um, posting every other Friday around noon, and always available, always reachable on the Noia Dev Discord server.
Awesome. What will Noia Dev have its own like landing page or website?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, I don't want to give that out just
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe if it comes, I can update the description.
Yep.
But awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Splosions. Looking forward to the launch. I hope it all goes well. And thank you all for watching. Bye.
Bye.